Good afternoon and welcome to the April 13th Oklahoma City Planning Commission meeting. If you have pagers or cell phones, similar devices, we would ask you to either turn those off or silence them now. We're not United Airlines, so we're not going to drag anybody out on their backs today, but we do ask you to behave. If you are not the applicant and you're here to talk to us about a case today, many of you have already found these little sheets on the table outside the chambers, but if you want to talk to us about a particular case, we'd be happy to have you fill us out, and we would hear you when we hear the case. And with that, we'll receive the minutes. March 23rd meeting. We have a motion and a second to receive the minutes for March 23rd. Cast your votes, and that's received. And the next item is continuance requests. Aubrey?
We do have some continuance requests. We have an uncontested request for continuance for item B9 for case SPUD 966 to defer that to May 25th.
Anyone come today to talk to us about that case? Second. We have a motion and a second to continue item 9. Cast your votes, and that continuance is approved. We have additional continuance requests today.
B9 did have that.
Oh, Susan Broadbent, is she here? Okay. Oh, good.
We do have some new requests for continuance.
Okay. I see it. She wants a continuance on 1538. Okay. Can you come to the podium, please? And give us your name and address.
My name is Sharon Lockwood. My address is 5360 South Independence.
And you're asking for that to be continued because?
Because I visited with my neighbors on Independence Avenue. I showed them the site concept, and no one I spoke to had seen it, and they were concerned. And we've had no meetings. So I'd like to ask the developer if he would continue this so that he can meet with the neighbors. We can express our concerns to him.
Okay, is the applicant here today? Item 15. Let him come to the podium, please, if you'll just step back and we'll...
Yes, I actually apologize.
Give us your name and address.
Oh, my name's Steve Landis with Landron Group or Landron Engineering, and we actually apologize for this, for this situation. There's not an HOA through that area, and we actually did spend about 2 or 3 days actually going through the neighborhood and actually polling people individually.
Both of you, you need to come up to the microphone if you're going to speak, because this is recorded, even televised for the 20 people who watch it. So.
Okay. No, that's perfectly fine. No, we did try to do that in the first place, and apologize if we missed one. Maybe we hit somebody when they're not at home, but I'll try to explain a little bit of that a bit later. I'm sorry.
Pardon me.
Come to the microphone, please.
I spoke only to my neighbors on from Southwest 52nd to Southwest 55th on Independence Avenue. As I said, I showed them the site plan. None of them had seen it. They had no idea what was going in there. I live on Independence. My parents live at 5352 South Independence. They weren't contacted. No one had any idea of what was planned. We received only a notice that there was a rezoning meeting. But in just the 2 hours that I spent last night going down the neighborhood, I got signatures from everyone on a petition to stop this. So what I'd like is just to have some input. We'd all like to have some input. It might please the developer to know there was some support for some of the aspects.
Actually, I'd like to speak to you. That's fine.
If you would like.
And then we can come back at that time.
Well, if you'll do that, that's fine with us. And
I am.
Let me do that, and then we come back.
You'll be heard in order then, or we'll consider a continuance request, whichever the case is. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, we have other continuance requests, Aubrey.
Okay.
Excuse me, Susan?
Yes. Well, actually, I am here to ask for a little more time, too, on item B4. Do I need to do it now or when you bring it up? Or I'm from Putnam Heights neighborhood, and same kind of situation, I think.
So we're talking about South May, item 4, excuse me. I have to flip back here.
Is the developer here?
This is the ABC2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is the applicant for item 4 here?
Well, that's easy.
If the applicant's not here, we'll continue it automatically
To May?
at least to our next meeting, which would be May 11th, isn't it?
May 11th. Thank you, sir.
No, April 27th, Susan, I'm sorry, 2 weeks. And we'll vote on that as we... Let's take a motion and vote on that now so they don't become confused as we go forward.
We're going to do 4 separately? Okay, it's fine with me. 4 and 4.
4, because we're going to get a series of them.
Okay.
So let's just do them one by one if we have to.
I'll move continue item 4.
Yeah, this is continue item 4 to the 27th of April. If I can have a motion in a second.
You have a motion and a second?
I do.
So,
Cast your votes. And that's continued to May 27th. Okay, that's 4. Now, other requests.
We did have other requests. Item B5 for case C6885 to go to April 27th meeting. Item B7 for case C6888 to defer to May 11th. Item B11 for SPUD 965 to defer to April 27th. Item B16 for case PUD 1639.
We would like to protest that continuance.
So, what?
We would like to protest that continuance request on PUD 1639.
Which one is that? 16?
Well,
4B16.
we'll get to it.
All right.
Thank you.
3 more requests. B16 for case PUD 1639 to defer to May 11th. Item B18 for SPUD 956 to defer to May 11th. And item B19 for case PC 10492 defer to May 11th.
Now we'll take these in order. Is there anyone here to protest the continuance of B5? B7?
Bingo.
B11? Now B16, sir. If you give us your name and address.
My apologies. Charles DeCoon, 4301 East Wilshire Boulevard.
Okay.
The main reason we think this continuance request is unnecessary is that the person who filed for this zoning request has known for approximately 6 months that we are against this, and they requested this continuance 2 days ago. So if they've had 6 months to work on it, I'm not sure that a couple additional weeks will assist them significantly. I'm taking vacation time right now. My wife had to change her schedule. I've got a friend working on her cell phone, and a lady here who had not been in downtown Oklahoma City for 14 years showed up for this. This is a stalling tactic, and I would like for this to be heard today. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Box?
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. The protest was filed Friday. We didn't get a copy of it till this week. I started making phone calls. The protest petition, as you see it, is mostly addresses. There were only a handful of numbers that were included. I called every single number that was provided. I left a message for the gentleman that just spoke to you, and it's not a stalling tactic. The first time we became aware of protests, what we wanted to do is have a neighborhood meeting. I did everything I could to try to tell people. The 2 people I did speak to said, well, no one's really in charge. There's not a point of contact. My goal was to not have this happen so that we could go meet. If May 11th doesn't work, we can push it out further. I did speak to Dr. Cooper, and I do think it's important to go meet. I tried to do everything I could to get the word out, including leaving a message with him. And so I think it's this body's standard practice when protest occurs that the applicant and the developer and the neighbors have the opportunity to go sit down and visit and see if they can work through their differences. So that's the only purpose. But again, if May 11th doesn't work because of travel schedules, we're in no rush. We can push it out if that's necessary.
For the record, I returned his call twice. I have not heard back. The first one, by mistake, I called your father
Pay
instead of
attention,
you.
sir. You need to speak to us.
Okay, the first time I called back, I mistakenly called his father instead of him, so I returned an additional call to the secretary who ensured me that my voicemail would be checked.
Okay.
Again, they have been fully aware of where the neighborhood stands for approximately 6 months. One of the protests, I think the reason they're doing this now is one of the protests is, well, which if we hear it today, you will see that we have a very clear case. Again, we don't like the idea of sitting on our hands for 6 months and 2 days before the meeting, calling it quits. People are taking vacation. People are changing their agendas for this. This is just not the right way to do it.
Okay, thank you. Lady behind you. Your name, please, and your address.
Linda Akers. The address is 4401 East Wilshire Boulevard. We're directly across the street from the proposed amended property. With regards to the comments that were made by the attorney, we have met with the owners of that property, and we received information that is quite contradictory to the information that we did receive from the Planning Commission describing their proposed request for the amendment. More than anything, I just wanted to make you aware that we have talked to the property owners, so it isn't something that now we suddenly appear before you to voice our concerns. We have talked to them, and they have visited with several of the families that live in that area, so we have had communication with them prior to this date.
Okay, thank you. Lee? Cooper? Lee?
Hello, my name's Andy Patty. I live at 7501 North Coltrane, which is across the street. I'd like for the people that are here to raise their hand that are in protest. Please raise your hand. Most of these people here are the people that live in the immediate vicinity of where this business is going to be built. She has talked to people for over the months. When she talked to me, I told her that I didn't want a business that served alcohol. She knew how I felt about it. She's talked to a lot of people in the area. We get this notice 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. We have to present something. I think we did a good job of presenting what we feel is the community's, what the community needs to have, and they want to put a business in our residential community.
Okay,
it's as simple as that.
To not actually hear the case as we're talking about a continuance. The point is there's a bunch.
So we've made our we've got a presentation to present. We're ready to go.
Okay.
The lawyer couldn't get anybody to talk to him because no one was interested in talking to him. If you take a show of hands, they're all against talking to him.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got it. Thank you. Lee?
Mr. Chairman, I think that given the concerns for all of the citizens who have shown up in protest, I think it would be fair for them to actually have a meeting to be able to share their concerns and share what those are and be able to come to some resolve, hopefully.
We're not having a debate here.
I understand, but we have discussed it. We don't want to meet with the lawyer, and we all agree on that. So I just want you to be aware that if you have a continuance, it'll just be 4 weeks, and we'll be back again.
Can I say something before you dig your heels in on that? The way this body operates, our process really encourages that communication. If an applicant comes to us and says, we're not interested in meeting with somebody, we don't take that well. And I have to say, for my own part, I'll speak for myself, that when neighbors come to us and say, we don't want to speak to that person, I don't take that well either. It is possible in the process of dialogue and collaboration, sometimes, to solve the concerns that neighbors have about development. Not always. And if you try and it fails, then that's so much, all that can be done about it. But I would really, really encourage you, all of you, and I want to say also, we are sensitive to the fact that sometimes, and it doesn't happen very often because they know better, applicants will delay things through continued continuances of a case. But I think that if you will take the time to meet with the applicant, you might be surprised at what comes out of that. And if not, then we at least will know that that effort has been made.
Well, again, she has talked to people in the area. She has presented a completely different scenario than with it, but the petition is, we, again, have decided as a group that we heard what she had to say, and we've here today to protest that petition. If you want a continuance, that's fine. I have two questions according to that. If you continue it, can I still go down the street? Because we only hit very few homeowners on Wilshire, and there's many homeowners on Wilshire that would gladly sign a petition, so I need to increase that. I'd also like to get more letters from the community because people didn't have time to write letters. So if you have a continuance, is that still an option to do for this issue?
Sure. Yes. Yes. Okay. And let me say that we're glad that you're here. So it's not a matter of delaying, and I don't necessarily think maybe that this is a delay tactic. So they're willing to actually continue as long as necessary in order to have a meeting or two meetings. I've heard some misrepresentation of what is the actual truth. And in this case, I think that it would be helpful to be able to hear from both sides what your concerns are. Some of those could be addressed, and maybe something could be worked out. So that has generally been the practice for this body. And hopefully things would work out in a way that would be wonderful for everyone involved. And we don't have any problem with you coming back in 2 weeks. We encourage you to do so, or a month from now, or whenever this is continued, and it seems to be significant protests, so there may be necessary to have more than just one meeting. So we may be looking at a further continuance on down the road. So that's really my comments.
Our procedure, just a second for the turnaround here, fella. Come here for a minute.
Sir?
Well, no, I want to make a comment about the number of hands that were raised. This is really something I'm extremely sympathetic towards, of people that go through the exercise of giving up vacation time, giving up, whatever, to come in here, and we've been sympathetic to that for years and years and years. This particular activity of a continuance, believe me, I will not forget the number of hands that have been raised at this meeting, but I think that what we're suggesting, give it one more shot, because right now they know the power of what the applicant, they know what it is that you're not comfortable with, and perhaps compromises can be done within another meeting 2 weeks from now, and if your schedule can't make it, I'll remember the number of hands that have been raised. So I really think that a continuance is appropriate and another meeting is appropriate, but you have my sympathies.
One quick statement to Mr. Cooper. You requested that we have a meeting. My household has had 2 meetings with the person who has filed this. Other households might have had more or less, but we have had the opportunity to talk. This has taken place. I don't want anybody over here to think that we have not talked to Ms. Cheney, to Ms. Austin.
There has been a meeting with everyone invited to that meeting?
She has met with each property owner individually, sir.
Yeah, but nobody collected.
I just have to interrupt here. I mean, this is a continuance request.
Yeah, I mean,
let's vote on it.
We will.
Let's vote.
My comment to you, the protesters, and to the applicant both is, this is the first hearing. If this had been continued 2 times, or if this was after we had requested that you meet, it would not be continued. But it will be continued today. I can count the noses here. I'm used to doing it. We're going to continue this, so that's what's going to happen.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second to continue this to the first meeting in May 11th. Cast your votes. It's continued. Next item. Okay. B18, B19. Okay,
Are we continuing item number 17?
not yet, anyway, unless you're going to request it. But let's vote on the ones we've just gone through, which is B5, 7, 11, 18, and 19. Motion to continue? Pardon me? That'll be in the next group. So I need a motion and a second. Second. Okay, we have a motion to continue the items as I just read them. Cast your votes. Now, are there any other continuance requests from the public or the commission?
I have a request on item number 12. Commissioners, I'm well familiar with this property, and I'd like an opportunity to meet with the applicant on this to see what we could do to, I appreciate what they're intending to do, but I think we could do a little better. So I'd like an opportunity to meet with the applicants on this application because it's right around the corner. So I'm well familiar with this property, and I agree it needs some help, but I don't think we're quite there. So I can't support the application in its present state, and I don't think we're going to get to 5 looking around. So if the applicant's present on item 12, anybody here on that?
Is the applicant here?
And I move to continue it for a month.
Sharon Lockwood. Sharon Lockwood here. Oh, 15, I'm sorry.
I'll move
Okay, well,
one
motion
time.
second to continue item 12. Cast your votes. That's continued.
Thank you.
Item 14, I'd like to have a little more time to fill out information.
Commissioners, item 14. Where's Mr. Box?
Right there.
There's a request from Commissioner Ryan to continue item 14.
No, we can't. We've changed no uses. Since it was presented to the Planning Commission last time, no uses have changed except for we have. Well,
we've eliminated a lot of uses.
We've eliminated and we've restricted locations, but that's common as we work through the process. And so, to ignore the commissioner. I don't think we've ignored anybody. We've followed the exact same process that I've followed in every single zoning case I've ever been involved in. As soon as we revised it, we sent it to Development Services so that they have it in their file. Now, when we met with you, we outlined everything, and I wasn't aware that there were major concerns. Since that time that we've met, we have stripped away uses. So as we continue to work through it and met with everybody, we've restricted to now where we have.
I'd like at least 2 weeks for you to explain what you took out.
I can explain it in 15 seconds.
Okay, well, that's fine, but we don't have that time here. So I would ask for some continuing.
My client's been working on this for 4 months. We've had a meeting with the neighbors. They have one final concern that I'm ready to say we're willing to do what they want to do, but every single PUD, when there's issues, uses change. And if the policy of the Planning Commission is going to be if a single use changes, we're just going to continue, there's never going to be anything that gets done here. And
That's okay. Okay. I would like a continuance to explain the uses.
There were 4 uses that we restricted to the south half of Tract 5. We limited outdoor sales to within the primary hours of the business, and we changed the word shall to may in signage. That is the entirety of the change from when we were here 2 weeks ago.
So in 2 weeks you can explain it.
We believe we have been continued enough. We've met with the neighbors. There is at least one neighbor here. She's going to make a request about a wall that we're going to agree to. There is no reason to delay this again and put it on this docket again.
There is a reason. I see that reason. I'd like for you to explain the uses to me personally.
I feel like I just did. I cannot, on behalf of my client, agree to another continuance.
I move that we continue this for 2 weeks.
We have a motion and a second. Have to cast your votes. The motion to continue fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. We'll hear it in order. Any other requests? Janice?
Are we continuing item number 17?
No. Not unless you raise the issue.
Yes, that was on the list of continuance.
It wasn't not that we knew and read.
We submitted a letter yesterday.
But a little birdie told me that it was going to get continued.
Yeah. Ms. Powers knows who's on the other side, and I have it marked off on mine. We submitted a letter yesterday to May 11th.
We did not catch it in the process internally, so it's not one I read earlier.
My apologies. Yes, May 11th.
Okay. We need a motion then to continue item 17 to May 11th.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue item 17. Cast your votes. And that is continued. I guess we can get back to the few cases we now have for public hearing today.
Maybe we ought to continue the meeting.
But just wait until you show up in 2 weeks and see the agenda.
You'll have to bear with me as I start reading cases. If I've read one that was continued just now that is not continued. Okay, so item 4 was continued, item 5 was continued, so we're on item 6.
Consent docket.
Oh, we need to approve consent. Let me read those 3 items of consent. Let's knock those out. Item number 1 is for ABC 883 for an ABC 2 overlay of PUD 62A. Item number 2 is ABC 884 for an ABC 2 overlay of a C3 district. And item 3 is ABC 885.
Anyone here today to talk to us about the consent docket, items 1 through 3?
Move the consent docket.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Cast your votes. And that's approved.
And back to item 6. PC 10494 to rezone 13400 North Council Road from R1 to O2.
Applicant here? Yeah, you take like a 10-minute nap back there while we were doing all this other stuff?
I have an adequate apology. Mark Ritchie with Civil Design and Survey. I was texting with my wife about bus pickup. Sorry. Well, my priorities are in order. I'm here on behalf of the applicant requesting O2 zoning for the parcel shown on the exhibit, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. And thank you to David.
Commissioners, questions, discussion, comments?
I have some questions and comments on this application. this is straight rezoning from R1 to O2. And it's in an area that I look on the aerial map that's adjacent to significant residential development. It's also not on a corner, it's in the middle of the block. And the aerial map indicates significant number of trees that are on the property. And with a straight zoning to O2, as the staff report says, if you're more than 150 feet away from a residential area, you can put a 6-story office building here and tear down every tree that there is. I prefer a SPUD on this application, and I think that's what it should be, to know what kind of materials you're using, what your site plan shows, how the ingress egress is adapted to what's the street?
Council?
Council, and then also how it's compatible with the other residential areas, and also landscaping, tree preservation, et cetera, et cetera. Ordinarily, if it was straight rezoning, but this seems to me a pretty sensitive area that is populated by pretty nice residential developments and subdivisions, and this is in the middle of the block. You've got north, east, south, R1 all around you, and you want to put O2 in this, and I don't know what you're going to do with the piece of property. And that's my comment about this application. I think you should come in with an SPUD and show me what kind of building materials you're going to do, elevations, site plans, et cetera. How are you going to position parking, et cetera, all the things that you would do with an SPUD. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other discussion?
I kind of tend to agree with that, frankly. I think it would be a good idea if you would represent this application as an SPUD.
Pat, were you going to say something?
I agree with you.
Okay.
There's no protest.
No, there is no protest. Commissioners, what do you want to do?
Defer until the SPUD is ready.
It's just a PUD, not an SPUD,
Yeah,
right?
PUD.
Yeah, we just want a PUD.
It has to be a PUD. It's too large. It's larger than 5 acres. A PUD, it's more than 5 acres. Any
I
other
think it's
discussion?
probably appropriate.
There is no protest. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Bob.
So that's a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion.
I'm good, because I can count, so.
Yeah, it's good that you...
Yeah.
And you would make the bus line.
Yeah, I can. Understand, Bob.
All right. Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue item 6,
How long? How much
release
time do you need?
May 11th, to come back with a PUD.
Let's set it for a month.
Yeah, it's May 11th.
Then
That is-
we can adjust the out.
May
we can
11th would
adjust
be a
that if
month
we
at
need
this
to.
point.
That'd be fine.
Okay, cast your votes, and you're continued.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 7 was continued. Item 8 is SPUD 962 to rezone 8937 South May Avenue from C3 and CUP 44 to SPUD 962.
Is the applicant here?
My name is Ong, and address 8937 South Main. I rezoned to. I tried to get a rezone to get some U-Haul for renter in my store.
And that's basically what you're doing now, is that correct?
Yes.
So you want, you're basically asking to come into conformance with your operation?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question for staff. How far off of this is one of those, the existing parking will be deemed, so how far off of our parking requirement are we here?
We shouldn't be off of it at all, I wouldn't think. The trucks are just in one line along the north, so all of the convenience store parking is still available.
Okay, okay.
No one has signed up, Commissioners.
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 8. Cast your votes, and you're approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 9 was continued. Item 10 is SPUD 964 to rezone 2813 and 2825 Southeast 44th Street from O2 and R1 to SPUD 964.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Here on behalf of the applicant, also with me is Nick Gotro, here on behalf of the owner. This is an SPUD on a site that's zoned O2. The people that have been operating on this site have been manufacturing cars, dealing with modification of cars for decades, and they were unaware that they were zoned office. They had a tenant that they're now moving to a different location that finished doing a car and put it out for sale, which is what triggered staff to know that we weren't zoned correctly. So what we have done is a SPUD that will allow us to continue the use that has operated there for, again, decades. We did specifically take out that automobile sales, and everybody else that's in the building understands that that is not a use permitted. You cannot do that. There are several TEs that staff has asked us to take out additional uses, all of which we agree to. Before the meeting, in speaking to Mr. Bright, there were some concerns on signage. What we're willing to limit it to is 8-foot monument, expressly prohibit non-accessory signs. And if you notice this tract, the building as is on the front of Southeast 44th Street. The back piece is just vacant land. There are no plans right now to do anything, so we will commit to come back if and when we ever develop that back piece for a specific plan so that the Planning Commission can review it at that. There's the image you can see now. So with that, again, we agree to all those TEs, and we can add some the additional TEs that I just referenced. We'd ask for your approval.
Tell me what the difference is between automotive and equipment, on the one hand, cleaning and repairs light, and heavy repairs, heavy equipment. What are we talking about, heavy repairs, heavy equipment?
The heavy is what is required when you have the paint booth. So in order to be able to paint the car once you get done rehabbing it, if you're going to paint it, you have to have the heavy use unit to be able to do that.
It's not like giant vehicles. It has to do with heavy as in dense or intense or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
The heavy industrial uses we're okay with taking out.
No one has signed up, Commissioners.
One clarification, David.
Yes, sir.
On the signage,
Yes.
did you say no EMD?
Yes, we'll say that.
Okay, and 8-foot monument signs and
Yes.
no billboards.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that would be added to the TEs. So in that, I move approval of the application.
Second motion. We have a motion and a second.
Hold on,
I'm sorry.
Add the sign TE, right?
Yeah, Bob added the sign height and no EMD.
Right, and then do we have to add the site plan for the development of the back? Should that be an additional TE?
Yeah, we can add that as additional TE.
Okay.
Okay.
So David's agreed to that, so let's make sure we get it added, right?
Okay. That then is a condition as well. So now we have a motion and a second to approve item 10 as conditioned with 3 issues and new TE. Cast your votes.
Thank you.
It's approved. Thank you.
Item 11 and 12 were continued. Item 13 is SPUD 968 to rezone 7500 South Anderson Road from RC and AE2 to SPUD 968.
Ross Morris with Morris Engineering, representing the applicant, who happens to be here if you have any questions for him. This site, the city had just widened Anderson Road to 4-lane down through the intersection of 74th Street, and he's coming in. This tract was RC. We've come back with the SPUD, which I think in the SPUD we had it as a commercial C3, but staff report would like the base to be RC still, and then we've got, I don't know, 6 or 8 permissive uses in there from the C3 that they're okay with. So we've brought that back to you to see if maybe we can get this working.
Well, I've got a few questions.
Okay.
What are you going to do about sewer and water?
Sewer, of course, being in a commercial, it would be a septic. We've got an area around that my client owns, and he's granting an easement for them to take their septic to the south of this site onto him. And the water will have to be a well water that's out in the recharge area for the Garber-Wellington Aquifer, and there is groundwater in that area, so and that's what I think most everybody uses. There's a convenience store you can see there to the north of us. That's what they're all using.
And you do have to have a large tank for fire protection, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any protesters?
No, but I'm not done yet. It looks like on the master development plan that the entire site is paved. Is that?
Yeah, we've tried to look into the future and how this thing would play out, and that seemed to be the most efficient use for it. Detention isn't required in that area. Like I said, my client owns the surrounding properties, so that we felt like that would probably be the most efficient use for it if we could get that worked out like that.
So it looks to me like the north three-quarters of the property has had all of the trees removed already. Is that correct?
Yes. In the past few years, he has done some grading up in there. There's some other home sites out there, and so he's been, I mean, that's the hills, so he's, I think, been using some of that dirt.
So the trees that I see remaining on the south 25% of the site, you intend to remove. Is that?
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Well, our new plan encourages preservation of trees and replacing trees as can be done.
He owns that whole 30, or not 30, he sold several of those home sites there. The rest of those trees are all his. So I think those are intended to remain. So percentage-wise, this would be a small percentage of the whole tract.
Just, yeah, now.
Now, that's right.
But that doesn't give me any comfort for the future.
Well, in the future, I mean, that's all RA, rural residential, so I feel confident that those trees won't, and there's a creek that comes down kind of, if you look up on the picture where it says Southeast 74th, right underneath that 4, there's a creek that comes across there that's a low area, so that I'm pretty sure there won't be anything in that. The majority of those, vast majority of them will stay there. I mean, that's, if you're going to build a residential there, that's what you want. It's a jungle.
Not that not that I'm attempting to coach the applicant, but given the fact that the gentleman owns the property now, and all the surrounding property, is that you can withdraw the application, cut down the trees, all that stuff disappears. Come back later. They're already gone. It's his property. He can take the trees out if he wants to. That's what I'd do. I mean, I got to be, and there wouldn't be much we could reasonably say about it.
Well,
not that I'm clever like that. I'm just saying it's just something to think about.
Yeah. And, you know, you can see on the aerial the new construction that I was referring to through the intersection, that 4 lanes at Anderson from I-40 south, so that we felt like this property, you know, in years past with just 2-lane road there, it didn't have much more potential than the convenience store to the north. But considering the improvements that have been made, it puts this property kind of in a different league according to, you know, the way we looked at it.
Jim?
I really don't have any problem with it. You know, you've got commercial to the north, you've got a plane or a spud to the west. And the applicant owns the property adjacent to the south and to the east. I really don't have a problem with it, and I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
I just have a comment before we vote. And even though the staff, you know, has a list of TEs, do you agree with the TEs?
Yes, sir, we do.
You're going to replant trees?
We're going to do what?
Replant trees in clusters that you had bulldozed up. That's what it says. I mean, I just want to make sure what we're voting in approval of. By the way, so you can read the TEs.
Well, that mimicked the original tree clinic canopy. It was dense. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure you've driven by it, Jim. I mean, that's your ward, so you know how dense that property is.
I don't think that's practical for this tract if we're going to have this development at all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I do, but this is...
I mean, we might get some trees out. I mean, I think it's one thing, but say return to their original canopy, that means he's...
But to clarify,
we'll meet the landscape ordinance. How about that?
This is what the TE says.
I know.
Plant clusters, but my overall comment on this application is repeating the comments of the staff. The entire 3-acre site is going to be paved, 5 standalone buildings. It's more aligned with urban development standards, not rural. Upland forest, this is the issue about the trees that you've blocked
obviously,
off.
we can't replant every tree that was out there.
Doesn't specify, well, now you've told us about the water and sewer issue,
right,
the septic tank, et cetera, but that was a question of theirs. It may increase average daily traffic in the area. I'm just reading the comments. I mean, setbacks, et cetera. I mean, in other words, the staff is saying, here's the TEs that may fix what it is that we have objections to on this application in a rural area. You're not urban, you're rural, way rural, and you want 2 kiosks and 3 buildings on a 3-acre paved lot. I can't support it. It's too inconsistent with the area, and it's too inconsistent with what the staff's really saying in their analysis of this application.
You know, well, we asked these folks to go back and do a SPUD. They've done that. And, you know, I can't see that we're doing anything out of the ordinary with the zoning. Like I say, you've got zoning to the north, you've got zoning to the west. You don't actually have a 4-lane actually in front of the subject property, do you?
Do we say that one more time?
That 4-lane does not go all the way through the...
Yeah, it goes through the intersection.
Does it? Okay, I couldn't remember exactly where.
And then they taper it back to a 2-lane.
Okay, well, that makes a difference,
before you get to the end of this property.
Yeah. And I really don't think that I don't see a problem with it myself, but...
I can't support this application. It seems to me that it is just sort of, a cookie cutter commercial development that's plopped down in this, rural area. They've called it an SPUD, but they haven't done anything to it to make it more compatible with its site. And I just, what's the point?
Well, what if we offset the 3 acres here, the trees that we've taken, and say we're going to preserve 3 acres of trees on the adjacent property that he's got? I mean, those are residential. Theoretically, they could build their house and flatten every one of them. So if we make a tree preserve, 3 acres of preserved trees,
if they had created
an easement of trees.
If they had created a development on the site that was actually in harmony with its surroundings, if it had more trees as part of the development, if it was less than 5 freestanding buildings on 3 acres of paved surface, I can't vote for this.
Well, Janice, this is
okay. We've got a motion and a second. Let's vote on it.
We have a motion and a second, which is what I was about to say.
What's the motion?
Let's vote. Cast your votes.
Is that for approval?
For approval.
Yeah, I'm in.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 14 is PUD 1628 to rezone 1520 South Mustang Road from AA to PUD 1628.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. On behalf of the applicant, who is also here with us, this is a PUD that has been before the commission now 2 times. Since the commission last heard this, we did go meet with the neighbors. We had a neighborhood meeting with the folks that are immediately north of us in their neighborhood. We talked through the issues. It was relatively supportive. I think the only issue that remained to be addressed was they asked for a solid masonry wall on the north end of Tract 5 where it abuts their neighborhood. My client has now agreed to do that, so we could add that as a TE, that we will do a solid masonry wall on the north end of Tract 5 where it is adjacent to the R1 use. Aside from that, one of the reasons it was asked to be continued the last time was there were significant uses that were taken out, and perhaps that Planning Commission didn't have time to review the uses that had been taken out in the meetings that preceded the hearing. So in the interim, we did have a meeting with 2 Planning Commission members, and we discussed a handful of things. There were a couple uses that we decided to limit to the south half of Tract 5, and those were eating establishments drive-in, eating establishments fast food with drive-through order window, and laundry services. So within Tract 5, those are limited to the south half. Additionally, the concern about outdoor sales and display, we further limited that to, 1, it has to be an accessory use, and it's limited to the hours of operation of that primary use. So the intent is you can't have goods left out overnight. That was the concern that was raised. And then Ms. Powers had a question about signage, and so 9.8.1.1, we took the word shall out and put may, so it reads all other parcels may be permitted rather than all other parcels shall be permitted. So if you remember, what we deferred to was, because we have such a large parcel here, it's not presently known what the size, what the signs are going to look like. And so we've deferred it, but we wanted to come up with some sort of parameters that might be appropriate. Ms. Powers was concerned that the word shall might give a crafty lawyer, other than me, the opportunity to get to this podium and say, we absolutely get this, you can't say no. So we've changed that to the word may, which allows the Planning Commission to have equal footing in whatever argument might come later on down the line. So with that, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. What's that? It'll, as part of the PUD, it has to be in a common area that would be required to be maintained by, the developer, so, as well as all the landscaping. So that'll be maintained at his expense at the time of development, just like all the landscaping will have to be maintained at his expense. So with that, the neighbors, I think, like I said, we're happy. I'm not going to speak for her. She is here. But other than the wall, we seem to have a lot of support from the neighbors. I think that there is only the one here. So we think we have a project that, with the way that this part of the city is changing, with the turnpike coming and the massive amount of single family that's been growing in this ward, it's a project that's needed. It's going to be a major sales tax generator. It's going to be one that's going to allow for the type of development that is needed, a large hospital site, perhaps a large theater site. We've tried our best now to whittle each tract down to appropriate uses just for that tract. So I think we're at a point now where we have a PUD that is appropriate, is conforming with the comp plan, and we'd ask for your approval.
Janice, anything you want to add? I mean,
Did you mention the limitation on the number of hotels? Or did I miss that?
That's 3 in the whole PUD, right?
What's that?
3 in the entire PUD, hotels.
That's correct, and further limited to over here.
Yes.
And Ms. Powers had a question about Airbnb, and we're going to work with staff between now and council, whatever we need to do to satisfy that.
I have 3 tweaks on the application, and one that I thought that you did before. On Tract 3 and Tract 5, you have alcohol sales being permitted next to an elementary school. I would prefer that those be deleted.
Yeah, I thought we had.
No, you didn't. They're in there.
Well, they're not.
Okay, those are out.
Yeah, I don't know what you're looking at, but they're not in there.
Okay, well, good. Well, and then the other tweak is, did I understand on the signage height issue that you've changed shall to may?
Yes, sir.
That's good, okay.
I think on balance, we got really good cooperation. It took a while. Took a couple of meetings. The objectionable uses, I think, are gone. Appropriate uses are clustered in the tracks where they belong.
In fact, Mr. Bright, Mr. Corey's daughters were the ones that were adamant that no alcohol sales be permitted in those tracks, I think over the objection of their father. So what your staff report has, I think, is what was filed 6 months ago. And I don't know how to fix that issue, but...
I hope that this is the project that, as it develops out, we'll be able to look back on and kind of use as a little bit of a learning tool for ourselves. My concerns about this when it first came to us was just that there has to be that balance between the flexibility that the developer needs in order to go out and recruit the businesses and to find the right placement for them and the right location. And for us, on the other hand, not to have a giant tract of land where you can just do anything anywhere. So we have met and worked it out, and I think, we've tailored it and narrowed it down. And I think what we've got is a good mix of those two, a good balance of those two. We'll see as it develops whether we're right or not.
That's the latter point, we'll see, because there's a lot to come,
Well, it's a large project. It will take some time to develop and build out, but I think we'll see some activity fairly soon based upon what we know.
I'll make a motion.
Good.
Second motion.
We have a motion. Go ahead.
I got it. I did it. Motion to approve. Thank you, applicant, for working with us on that.
Clarified, we have a motion to approve, not just a motion, and a second, so cast your votes. And it is approved.
Thank you.
The next item?
Chairman, excuse me, I'm Dr. Corey Samco. I just want to thank members of this commission. I know how hard we worked on this, and I hope that you'll be satisfied with the product that we're going to build for the city. I will mention that we do have the theater as committed today. I met with the CEO. I also called the hospital, and they have committed for between 30 and 50 acres. So I want you all to realize that we're on the road, and this will let us achieve a quicker victory. Thank you, sir.
Good, thank you. Item 15.
Item 15 is PUD 1638 to rezone 5903 South Independence from PUD 562 and AE2 to PUD 1638.
The applicant here? Oh. Yeah, you walked in at, your timing's perfect. What did you accomplish?
Well, right now, we're actually discussing a few things. Once they understand the whole concept of the project, they're a little bit more happy about it. We're just a little bit more disturbed by the fact that we already deferred it once under the idea that we would get with the neighbors. And we did, like I said, do the polling. We talked to the church and even ODOT and went through all sorts of met with Crickenberg with the airport authority and went through all sorts of things. And then all of a sudden this came up. Well, so what we're talking about right now is seeing about deferring it to the 27th.
Okay.
But the only thing we have on that deferment is there's contract requirements between, actually one of the gentlemen out here is the actual seller, that we've got to try to see if we can work through those details on that. So I guess what I could say is could I move this to the end of the agenda?
We only have one more case to go.
Well,
no, we're done, aren't we? We are done.
Okay.
Yeah, we're finished.
Well, then I could come in and do my entire presentation that I had on what we did, how we did it, but I don't think until we talk to these ladies, the people that, like the lady that I just spoke with, you all will be interested in even hearing me, aren't you?
Will it help you with your seller if we insist that you continue it?
Well, possibly. Like I said, we've tried to contact each and every one of y'all for feedback as well, and I think, for example, Ms. Lyons is back here, and we've tried to work with her, with the Southside Chamber, and do what we could, and I think with Mr. Rankin, I tried to speak with him, and so we're really working pretty due diligently to try to get a good project. I'm going to defer it to the 27th. Let's just do it that way.
Okay.
But under that requirement or whatever, I'm hoping that this board, planning commission, actually feels that as long as I can work through the details with that organization, you all are comfortable with this project as well.
Yeah, nobody's promising that. But if you get a meeting set up with the neighborhood as a group, I would very much like to know time and place on that.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that because I think I have all y'all's email information as well. So I told her we'd defer it to the next meeting as long as she will be an advocate on getting the neighborhood association, well, there's not a neighborhood association, but the people together that are concerned, and we'll try to do what we can from there.
Okay, we'll take a motion. We have a motion and a second to continue item 15 for 2 weeks to the 27th. Cast your votes. And that's continued. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and sorry about the delays.
The rest of the items were continued.
I'm sorry, I was number 12, and I didn't know how we were doing this, and it got
you were
out in the middle.
continued a long time ago.
Yeah, when is it, though?
The first meeting in May, it would be May 11th.
May 11th, okay.
Are you the applicant?
Yes, sir.
Let me give you my details so you can reach out to me, because I'm familiar with that property, and I wanted the continuance, and the rest of these guys agreed with me.
So if you'll get with Commissioner Hensley as soon as we wrap up.
I can approach?
Yeah.
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Planning Commission committees? Members? Planning Department? Development Services?
I've got, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway.
Uh-oh. Watch out.
On item number 13, I don't think I was missing when that came to the Planning Commission before. I don't think I was here. And we asked that applicant to come back with a spud. That kind of indicates to an applicant that that's an acceptable project. If it's not, we should take care of it then, not wait until that comes back as a spud. They spend the money to redo that thing and then turn it down. That's just my remark.
Chances are, when it came in as a straight zoning matter, when it was requested that it be a spud, there was some discussion about things like site planning, landscaping, traffic flow, curb cuts, and things like that, which, at least on that one, didn't come back that way. I don't remember the discussion at the time, but very typically that's what we do and say. So usually there is some guidance provided when we ask for a PUD or an SPUD when someone comes in with a straight zoning case. So if it wasn't done in that case, that's our fault.
But maybe it should have been plan unit development then. Maybe it should have went that way.
Well, it's too small. It's a SPUD size. I mean, it's 3 acres, not.
Was that Ross's case we're talking about, to be clear?
Yes.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say about that was the characterization of this land as rural, and it will be rural in character, I think, maybe. But I'm looking at, you Google that address up, it's less than a mile off I-240, and there's an exit there. So it's basically, to me, looking forward, a commercial corner. And I don't think his development with that view, and based on Jimmy's far more familiar with that part of town than I am, I think the development out there is trending that way. Now, if it was a question of, because the concept that it was rural, I don't think that's going to be that way in a very short period of time. But you tell me, Jimmy. You know better
Mike,
than me.
here's what I asked the applicant or the representative. Have you read the TEs? This is to be zoned rural commercial. He wanted C3. And I said, have you read the TEs? He looked at them. If he complies with the TEs, it probably fixes all the problems that I had with his application that he wanted to zone C3. Rural commercial is another matter entirely. There's setbacks and there's all sorts of other things that I don't think they have a clue what they're doing with those TEs. I really don't. And that's why I asked the question. I mean, so we approved it. It was approved with those TEs intact. And I hope, I hope that when the zoning inspector goes out there and he says, oh, wait a minute, this is RC, this is rural commercial.
Well, and, that's their responsibility.
No, I agree. And probably, if they comply, that fixes what my problems were with the application, if they follow the TEs. But I don't think they have read them. I don't know, I hope they do.
Yeah, well, I understand, but I still think when we ask somebody to do that, come back with a plan unit development or a SPUD, we're kind of indicating to them that if they do, we're going to vote for it. That's the way I feel about it.
I think we would have been willing, for myself, I'll just speak, I think I would have been willing to vote for it if he had planned a rural commercial development, but that's not what that was.
But it has to be. That's what they've agreed to.
Sir, do you have something you want to say to us? Okay, well, we're happy you were here today and hope you enjoyed it. We are adjourned.